Alright, so I'm going to show you how to go ahead and install Octoscreen on a Raspberry Pi with the Raspberry Pi 7-inch display. You're going to need a couple things before you get started. You're going to need Notepad++, PuTTY to SSH into the Raspberry Pi. We need a disk imager to actually flash the OctoPrint onto the SD card. So I recommend Win32 disk imager. And then we also need the OctoPrint image. You can download that on octoprint.org, and I will add all of these links in the description for you. So once you have all of these downloaded, you can go ahead and get started. So go ahead and put your SD card into the computer. Once it's in the computer, right-click on the Start menu, go down to right-click on the Start menu, go to Disk Management. When this opens up, you want to find your SD card. Mine's here at the bottom, and we need this to say all unallocated. So we're going to go ahead and delete these partitions. It'll take a second to delete them. And this is just going to format the SD card back to its original settings. So if you've used this SD card in your Raspberry Pi at all before, I definitely recommend this step. Once it shows all unallocated, we can go ahead and get started. So we're going to open up Win32 Disk Manager. And you want to make sure under device it does show your SD card. It should auto select that for you, but if it doesn't, make sure you switch it over. And then we're going to click the blue folder, and we're going to find our OctoPrint image we downloaded. So I saved mine to my desktop. Here it is. Click open, and then we're going to click write. You can go ahead and click yes to this pop-up. It's just letting you know that you're going to write to a physical device and it could corrupt that device. But go ahead and click yes. This will take anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes normally, depending on how quick your computer is. So I'll come back when this is complete. Alright, so since that has successfully written the image to the disk, you're going to get this pop-up says you need to format the disk and the H before you can use it. Go ahead and click cancel on that, click OK to this, click cancel here as well, and we can go ahead and close out of Win32. So now we're going to go ahead and add our Wi-Fi network on here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and go to the boot G drive that it just made, scroll down to this Octopi WPA file, right click, open with Notepad++, and here you're going to see a lot of stuff. You're going to go ahead and input your wireless network. So I use a WPA2 network, so I'm going to put my info here. We're going to first delete the hashtags out of all of these, just like this. And we're going to put your wireless name here, and then we're going to go ahead and put the password in. Alright, so once you have your Wi-Fi info here, scroll down to the bottom, and where it says country, by default it has it as United Kingdom. By default it has United Kingdom, so you're going to go ahead and just add the hashtag back here to hash that out, and then delete the one from whatever country you're in. And then we can click the blue save file up top. And now that that's saved, we can go ahead and safely eject our SD card and put it back in the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so now that you have the SD card in the Raspberry Pi, you can go ahead and turn the Raspberry Pi on. Your screen should be plugged up at this point, and you should see some code run across the Raspberry Pi. Once it's fully booted, the screen's probably just going to show the 4 raspberries at the top, and at the bottom it'll say Octopi login. So that means everything's booted up, we're ready to get started. So we're going to open up a web browser. We're going to go ahead and navigate to Octopi.local. This will take a second on your first boot. It gets faster once you have it fully set up, but it should just go ahead and load up here in just a moment. Okay, so we know it worked. We have OctoPrint on the Raspberry Pi now because we have the setup wizard. So we're going to go ahead and just go through this. Click next on the first one. Set up a username and password on the second one. Go ahead and click the blue Keep Access Control Enabled, and then you'll get the green login successful. Click next. Configure anonymous tracking. Go ahead and do that. Next. Go ahead and click enable connectivity check and click next. I'm going to close out Akira since it's freaking out. Okay. Configure plugin blacklist processing, enable. Next. Here you'll have to add some info depending on what printer you have. I'm using the Ender 3, so I'm going to go ahead and just enter Ender 3 in both of these. And then under print bed and build volume, I'm going to go ahead and change this to the correct size for my printer. Okay, and then you have your axes and your hot end extruder. I use a 0.3 nozzle here, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust that on mine. And then if you need to adjust anything here, just adjust for whatever your printer is. And once you have all that set up, go ahead and just next through. And then it says all done, click finish. So now we have OctoPrint running. So that's taken care of. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go ahead and install Octoscreen. So this is where it gets fun. Go ahead and open up PuTTY. With your Raspberry Pi turned on, open up PuTTY, and for the host name or IP, go ahead and enter Octopi.local here and press enter. You're going to get this warning. Go ahead and click yes on this, and then it's going to say login as. Your default username is Pi, and the default password is Raspberry. So once you type that in, it's going to show this here. So what we're going to start with is we're going to go ahead and do an update. And to do that update, we're going to type in sudo apt-get space update, and then it's going to ask for our password, and again that's Raspberry, and it's going to run through this here. This doesn't take a super long time, and then we'll know it's finished when you see the green Pi at Octopi at the bottom. And I will have all of the commands we enter here in the description, so you can actually copy and paste them in. So the next one we're going to type in is sudo apt-get upgrade. This one will take a minute, so I'll come back when it's done. Alright, so here you're going to possibly get this pop-up. You can just press Q to quit it, and it'll go ahead and complete. It's almost done. Alright, so now that the sudo-upgrade and update's done, we can go ahead and reboot the Raspberry Pi. To do so, type in sudo reboot, press enter. And you should see the Raspberry Pi go ahead and restart. Go ahead and click OK on this. Once the Raspberry Pi comes back on, you can either open a new PuTTY session, or you can just right click up at the top where it says PuTTY, and you'll have restart. Okay, it's going to ask you to log in again. Default username is Pi, password is Raspberry. Alright, so now we need to go to the GitHub for Octoscreen. Let's do this. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is grab the dependencies to actually make this work. So you're just going to copy this first link, or this first script here, right click copy, and then when you go over to PuTTY, left click, and it'll paste it in, and go ahead and press enter. It's going to ask for your password, so go ahead and enter Raspberry again. And it's going to ask if you want to continue. Go ahead and just press Y, then enter. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and move on down to install from dpkg. You can actually copy all of this. Right click copy, and then in PuTTY, left click. And it's going to go ahead and start doing what it needs to do. and then you're going to see that it popped up with Octopi, and you think it's stopped, but you actually need to just press enter here again, and that's going to proceed with the next step on it. And your your Raspberry Pi should restart at this point. And when it restarts, you should see the Octoscreen go ahead and come up. Okay, so now that part's completed. You have Octoscreen working. You can power on your 3D printer, and you can go ahead and click on Octoscreen and make sure you can click Actions, then Move, and just try to move a different axis on it. And if it moves, it's working. I just tested mine, it is.